All right, so welcome to the first video lecture of the class. I want to kind of give you an introduction to how these video lectures go. Typically, I try to keep them between less than 10 minutes or up to 15 minutes. Occasional, I have to go over. But the whole point is to do short spurts of information as we go throughout the chapters to kind of give you some information about that's needed to be able to complete the assignments as well as the quizzes and exams. So as you see, we'll start here in Chapter 1, and the whole purpose of Chapter 1 is to kind of give us an overview of what is international sport marketing, specifically sport business, and how do we go about studying it. It's kind of an introductory chapter. And so I want to first start with some things that you'll probably not find in the text. Actually, I know you won't find in the text. And as you're taking notes, you can see that there's some fillable notes that you can use, or if you're just taking notes on your own, the most important thing to gather here in this first part is that there are 5 unique characteristics of sports marketing that you need to be aware of. If you've taken me for other sport marketing classes, you've likely heard this, but otherwise this is probably going to be new material to you. So let's go ahead and get into it. So these are the first 2. So what I mean by, my first one, even though there's 2 items, this is the first one. What I mean by that is, why are we studying sport business at all? Why is it important to understand sports consumers? Well, the first reason why sports marketing is unique, and you can write number 1 down, is that sport is invariably intangible and subjective. And what we mean by that is that intangible means you can't touch it, you can't take it home with you, and it's subjective in nature in that everybody is different in how they view it. And so, as you can see some pictures here on the screen, they're of mascots. One thing, a story I always remember is when I was working at the previous university I was at, I was working with a former baseball coach. He was, at this time, now a faculty member. We're sitting at a minor league baseball game, and one of the mascots jumps onto the dugout, kind of like you see in the second picture here, and starts dancing. And he goes, "Man, I really wish that we wouldn't have this stuff." Well, obviously, he knew as a faculty member teaching sport management that there was a need for entertainment during the games. That's what's so is unique about minor league sports. But whether it be mascots or videos on the board, he could care less. He was a former baseball coach, so he wanted to watch how the pitcher was warming up during the half inning and what the infield was doing when they were warming up and that kind of thing, rather than the entertainment aspect. But for me, it was, being a marketer, I played baseball, but and I do look at what happens during the half innings. But for the most part, I just really cared about what was going on from a marketing consumer side. And so what I mean by this is everybody viewed this event differently. I could care less about mascots, but didn't have a problem with them. He could care less about mascots and did have a problem with it. So one thing you've got to understand going into the sports market is that people are emotionally tied to sporting events. Many times you can't take anything home with you other than maybe a foam finger or a hat. But you definitely have different opinions than possibly the person sitting next to you. And so as marketers, we have to attract a wide array of different sport consumers that all have different opinions about the products that we're putting on the field. And that is not just the athletes that are on the field or let's take a fitness center, for example, what types of weights are out there. But we have to understand we have to attract these different types of people. So that's the first unique characteristic, intangible and subjective. The second one is that the sport product, especially in its event form, is inconsistent and unpredictable. And one thing we know about this is one of the unique and good things about sports. If we knew every single game who would win, right? If we knew that every single game, SFA, men's basketball, as you can see on here, won every single game all the way through March Madness and won the national championship. While it would be a really cool event, if we knew the outcome of the game, really takes away some of the adventure and excitement of the game. And so the sport product is inconsistent and unpredictable in that you can't determine the outcome of a game. And so with that, you have to understand if you can't guarantee a win or quality of win, it's hard to market winning. So in other words, you as marketers have to understand that you are marketing an activity, a consumer spending dollar. And so understanding that's inconsistent and unpredictable kind of leads us to our third point, and that is if it's inconsistent and unpredictable, we can't guarantee on the win on the field, then we have to place a greater emphasis on the product extensions rather than the core product. And so if we're talking about the sporting event, you would say that the core product is the game on the field. However, what we have to make sure we understand as marketers is that we are selling more than just what happens on the field. We're selling the atmosphere and we're selling the excitement that goes along with being a part of a fan base. And so this includes everything from when I buy the ticket all the way till I get to the field, so parking, concessions, ticket takers, the events on the field, but the entertainment that goes along with it, the kids areas, all of the things that that are involved in the event process is what we're selling as marketers, rather than what happens on the field. We have little control over who plays, and so marketing a star is great, but what happens when that star doesn't appear? They get hurt. All right, you can't hang your hat on that. And so you're all probably wondering why I have a picture of Justin Bieber on the screen. Essentially, if you look at the picture on the left, one thing he came out with was being unique in that he was when he first started singing, a lot of people thought he was okay. Well, okay, take it back. Some of you may not think he was okay. But he had essentially his core product started to fade. That is his mentality being a younger singer, and so did his personality, so he had to change his image. This is what we're talking about. In other words, when the core product is unpredictable, in that what happened with Justin Bieber, you have to basically guarantee the sizzle of the steak instead of the steak itself. All right, so that's the third one. The fourth thing that we want to understand when we're talking about sports marketing is that it is a perishable commodity, especially in the event form. And so what we mean by that is once the product is produced, it is oftentimes consumed simultaneously. So when you put a team on the field, that pitch is never going to happen again. That win is never going to happen again. That exact game. That's why you say you can't sell tickets to yesterday's game, because it's pretty much worthless. As you can see on the screen here, I have two tickets to a Women's World Cup game in 2011 that my wife and I went to. I still have these tickets. If I told you rhetorically how many of you would want to buy it for $100, I would probably venture to say none of you, right? Because it doesn't mean anything to you. Some might say, well, I'll give you $1 for them just because it's memorabilia. But really, the value of that ticket is no longer there because a ticket to yesterday's game is worthless. And so what we have to understand from a marketing perspective, that most of the time, the way people determine whether or not they're satisfied with an event that is perishable is whether or not their expectations are met. And so thinking about expectations, when are those formed? Well, they're formed at the beginning of the purchase or before the purchase. And so before they even come to the game, they have expectations of what type of event they want to go to. The outcome of the game hopefully is part of their expectations, and hopefully we can help them with that. But as marketers, we have to make sure that we're guaranteeing that their expectations are met and the quality of the event that we're hosting. All right, and then the fifth one is that sport is publicly consumed. In other words, customer satisfaction, whether or not they're satisfied with the event, is often tied to whether or not they had a good social interaction. And so what we mean by that is very few people go to sporting events alone. Less than 2% of people go to sporting events alone, which kind of brings us to a recurring theory that we'll kind of talk about multiple times this semester, and that is the social identity theory. Essentially, if a consumer buys a product, they either do it on purpose or subconsciously, they buy that product, especially in sport, to kind of say something about who they are and their own personality. So I buy a jersey, it says something about who I am in my own social personality. When I came to SFA, I was born in Nacogdoches, but was not raised here, never went to SFA, and I came really as an adult for the first time after I moved away at 8 months old. And so there's no real connection, yet I wanted to make that connection with other people that lived here, my students, my fellow faculty members, my friends that I was making, and many of them are SFA sports fans. And so what I did is I went to sporting events, not by myself, with my friends, and I bought merchandise. And so when we go back to social identity theory, it basically says that I buy that SFA logo to say something about who I am and my personality. And so I'm communicating to others, either consciously or subconsciously, who I am and my social identity by the things I do and the things that I purchase. And a lot of that is part in sports marketing is the emotions that go along with it. So briefly, there are two big ways of looking at sports marketing and sport industry as a whole. We're going to call these the components of sports marketing. They are marketing of sport and marketing through sport. And I'll break these down. They're relatively easy to remember. So marketing of sport is really anything that has to do with marketing of the sport product itself. And the sport product is essentially anything that is producing a sport, whether it be the sport product, that being the running shoe, the sport product, that being the team, the event, the athlete themselves. All of those things are considered the sport property, also known as the sport product. And so when I put a commercial out to try to get people to watch my game online, I'm really marketing of sport. whether I put out discounts for tickets, all the things that I do for the team itself is marketing out sport. That's one way to look at sports marketing. But there's a whole nother avenue that is marketing through sport. And this is essentially promoting a business that's trying to promote a business by associating itself with the sport property. So this would be a sponsorship or any type of promotions that are tied with an event. And so this viewpoint is from the firm. And so this would be, as you can see here, kit sponsorships, as they call it in soccer, or a credit card putting the Detroit Lions on them. Those are all examples of, while they're not even sport related, they're trying to associate with the emotional ties that consumers have in the sport industry. And so when we talk about international sport firms, I want you to think about 4 examples of each of the following. First, a sport organization that operates internationally, and then 4 of those, and then 4 international forums that directly or indirectly impact sport organizations. And that'll be your first assignment.